Well, we want to welcome everybody to another edition of our DX Engineering video series. And today, visiting DX Engineering here in Talmadge, Ohio, I'm quite pleased to have Fred Lloyd, AA7BQ, who is the CEO and founder of QRZ.com. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure.
We're very excited to have you here. And, geez, why are you coming through Talmadge, Ohio?
Well, we just met, as you know, in the 100th anniversary convention of the ARRL in Hartford, and I'm headed back west now, eventually going to get back to my house in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay. Well, you have one of the most exciting websites that is dedicated to amateur radio, QRZ.com. How did you get started?
The site started in 1993. I was working for a computer company, Sun Microsystems, and my job at the time was helping people get connected to the internet. I managed to get a hold of a copy of the FCC database on tape, and I started a dial-up bulletin board, and after I had about 100 users, I decided, wow, this would be great to put on the internet, and I know some people that are on the internet. So I took my server and asked them if I could put it in some corner of their room, and fortunately they said yes, and it started growing from there.
So give me some idea of the time period when people were able to actually search for call signs on your website.
October of 1993, that
Wow.
was the start of QRZ. That was before Amazon, that was before Google. That was before Netflix. We were really early. We were one of the first 25,000 websites on the internet. Now, of course, there's 25 million websites.
But to get a URL like QRZ.com, that must have been expensive and hard to do.
You know, at the time, there was no registrar. There was no Dotster.com or anything like that. All I had to do was write an email and send it to the Network Information Center called InterNIC. I wrote them the email, said, I'd like to have this domain name, and at the time they just said sure. There were thousands of three-letter domain names available. They just gave it to me. I was a bit disappointed a few years later when they told me I had to start paying for it.
I can imagine that there must be a lot of traffic, a lot of guys that would do lookups on your website now today.
Yes, there is. In fact, we serve 60,000 hams worldwide every single day. That's 60,000 people. Each person will, on the average, visit about 10 pages. So in other words, wow. 600,000 pages a day, 600,000 hits are served by our equipment.
Wow. So that, you know, I don't know how that stacks up traffic-wise against other websites, but you've got to be one of the leaders in.
Oh, it's the number one. There's no question about it. There's no other ham radio website that has the same, or,
wow.
you know, even near the traffic that we do for a single website. We're it.
Now, you've not only do you have listings on your website for hams and, you know, their addresses or email addresses, but you've got a lot of other information on the website too.
Well, that's right. On our site, any ham can upload their photograph. In fact, there's no limit. Some hams have 100 photographs on their page. They can write extensively about their hobby, what they do. We also have a logging capability where you have online logbooks. We have forums where you can ask questions about any subject related to amateur radio or anything that you're basically interested in, and it's a very, very busy place.
So how many hams on a daily basis are involved in the forums and answering questions and postings and things like this, other activities?
Out of the 600,000 pages that we serve a day, approximately 60% of those are strictly in the call sign database. So the other 40%, and do the quick math here, perhaps I would say at least 200,000 pages a day are in the forums area. So each ham will on average visit about 10 pages. So there's probably 20,000 or so hams answering questions and reading the forums on a daily basis.
Wow. That's a lot of activity that's going on. And speaking of activity, how did you get started in ham radio?
You know, I played with CB radio when I was a kid. I was pretty interested in it, and that wore off quickly. but I always admired the hams and their radios because I love electronics. I love equipment. Anything with a knob and a dial and a meter, I love it. I was an electronics technician, and I had a career doing that as well. I became a licensed FCC engineer working in a radio station, a small AM station in Florida. And finally in 1987, I was running around in California, and during my lunch break I would walk into Ham Radio Outlet, which was right down the street from where I worked, and I would look at those radios and stare at them and go, darn, I wish I could do that. But the thing that stopped me 20 years ago was Morse code. I just didn't want to do it. And finally I just decided, the heck with it. I'm not going to let this overcome my desire. And I sat down and I learned the code. And at the time it was 20 words a minute for the extra. And I reached that goal within 56 days. So
wow.
I've been in extra class for 25 years now.
So I guess is evidenced by the fact that when you set your mind to something, you really do it, and you're really all in. I mean, how big of a job is it running a website like QRZ.com, a CEO? I mean, do you have a whole office full of employees or computers? I mean, what's it look like?
Well, it's a 365-day job, 24 hours a day. Because hams all over the world, when we're asleep, other hams are on the site. I did it all by myself for the first 18 years. I was the only person at QRZ, and just 3 years ago we hired our daughter to be the general manager. She was fresh out of graduate school, and I thought she needed a challenge, and she stepped right up to that. And then last year we hired an engineer to help me with the programming. I've been a programmer for years, and I've written most of the software on the site, but it sure felt nice to have someone else so I could sort of multiply my own efforts. And then just this year we've hired a customer support person as well to answer all the questions. We get about 100 requests for help every day. We have no offices. We have no property. Everyone works from home and everyone works on the internet. I check into the site 365 days of the year. Christmas, Thanksgiving, it doesn't matter. I check in, and I do it while I'm on the road. I travel throughout the summer. I'm traveling right now in our motorhome. And as long as I've got a connection to the internet, I'm online with QRZ. QRZ also doesn't have any servers either. They're all leased from Amazon.com, from their big worldwide server complex. So it's truly virtual from the standpoint of the intellectual property involved. It's just the people working at home on their computers, and every one of them are hams. We've got about 24 volunteers, and they've been instrumental as well. People that volunteer for the forum moderation, people volunteer to help with user questions, and I really want to call them out because they've been a tremendous help to QRZ. It's not just been me and now our other employees, but the volunteers are a critical part of this network.
And certainly, you know, all the forums and answering questions and keeping track of things and helping new hams and helping sort things out on the site. I'm sure there's a lot of followers and lovers of QRZ.com. And so you've been involved with QRZ since the start. You were the founder, and in the early days of the internet, and now here we are in 2014. We know what we know. What's the future look like? What do you think is going to happen to all this?
The hobby really needs an infusion of young people. We had a survey last year, and we found that the average age of a ham is over 50 years old, and a large percentage of them are over 60 years old. We don't see a lot of young people getting into the hobby. We need to figure out how to make that happen in order for the hobby to survive. It's one of the things about licensing and the number of hams is that it's growing. It's growing because more of the people our age are entering into retirement and looking for something to do. That can only happen once, however. So I am encouraged by the fact that the maker community and ham radio seem to be converging now. There's a lot of interest in microcontrollers and do-it-yourself and building. The maker community is very large, and ham radio can bring something to the maker that they can't do themselves, and that's much more long distance and better communication. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to, and something that QRZ is going to be looking forward to supporting as well.
Great. Well, Fred, we really appreciate you coming in and talking to us here at DX Engineering, and we hope you've learned a little bit about QRZ.com today.